name is Elizabeth Saldana, Financial Aid Coordinator for Scholarships and Outreach at Truckee Meadows Community College. So what is financial aid? Today I had this exact question: do I really need financial aid, and what is it? So financial aid is a way for you to fund your college career. To me, it's very important that students know that college is very expensive. If you go to a community college, it's a little bit doable, but if you start thinking about it, $1,000 every 3 months adds up real quick. So the student's question was, why do I even need it? That is why. You need assistance with paying for college because the FAFSA helps students pay using the Pell Grant, work study, or student loans to help everyone pay for college. Delisa, we have a question that says, hi, I would like to record.
Yeah, we're not allowing participants to record, but we will record the session and then post on the website afterwards. So I will put that link in the chat.
Awesome, thank you. So the free application for federal student aid becomes available every October 1st. And you will need tax information for you, the student, and the parent. If the student did not work as a high school student, it's completely fine. All you have to do is indicate that on the FAFSA. But please remember that it's every October 1st, and a lot of the aid that I'm going to go through in the presentation is a first come, first serve. So you want to make sure that you do your FAFSA as close as possible as October 1st, okay? Let's move forward. Okay, so this is the main landing page for the free application for federal student aid. It is FAFSA.gov, okay? Make sure that this is the link that you go to. There are other websites which have been found to be scams. There was one called FAFSA.com. What this website was taking students to was to people that would help them complete the FAFSA, but they would charge. One of the main words on this application is free. You never pay for assistance. You don't pay for federal Pell Grant. You don't pay for federal student loans, federal work study, or any scholarships or any institutional aid. Okay, we will discuss those differences later on, but never pay. Always make sure that you're on the federal website. You also want to protect your identity because identity theft can completely harm you and your parent, or vice versa, the parent and the student. It affects your federal aid because it will hold up everything until we verify your identity. Okay, so make sure that you are on the federal webpage when you do your FAFSA. Okay, again, it's FAFSA.gov or FAFSA.ed.gov. It always ends in .gov, just so that everyone's clear that it's .gov. On the FAFSA, you will need tax information as I stated before. There is this handy tool called the IRS Data Retrieval Tool. I highly recommend students and parents to use it because it automatically transfers your tax information from the IRS onto the FAFSA. And when it's transferred, it is encrypted. So what does that mean? That means that, for instance, let's say I was completing my FAFSA right now, and then I had other people behind me. Let's say I was in a Starbucks setting, then they wouldn't be able to see over my shoulder my social, my address, or my adjusted gross income, or my parents' information. So that is the safest way to complete your FAFSA, by using the data retrieval tool. All the information comes into us encrypted. Only financial aid representatives are able to see what was transferred over. Nobody else can. Always check the college's priority deadline For TMCC, it's July 1st of every year. Again, FAFSA opens October 1st. TMCC's priority deadline is July 1st. What does that mean? That means that you will get awarded first. You will get awarded monies with the institution first, and that money goes fast. So you really want to be in the top of the list to get awarded that money. You'll get scholarships from the institution faster. So make sure that you always check. I think, don't quote me on this, UNR could be February 1st or March 1st. I think they changed it recently. So if you're going to UNR, go ahead and check with them. Okay, dependency, determining dependency. A lot of the questions that I see here, and even my parents had it, was, are students not, why is my student needing my tax information? They're 18 and they have already graduated, they're moving out, they don't need me, they're not my dependent. Unfortunately, for the federal government, for federal aid, a student is a dependent student until they turn 24, unless they marry before or on when they complete the FAFSA, and they support their spouse more than 50%. Or if they have children and they support the children more than 50% and have proof of that. Or they're active US military. Or if the student's parents deceased at the age of 13. Okay, that's very sad. Or they're the word of the court, they become emancipated minors. So they get taken away from their parents and the student is considered an independent adult. They're under legal guardianship, or they're homeless or in foster youth. Those are the only circumstances in which a student does not need parent information. There are other circumstances that become very different, such as parent abuse, and the student can write us a note and have a social worker write us a note. That's another way a student can become independent. Otherwise, parents, I do apologize, but it's a federal regulation that the student will need your information until they become an adult of 24 years of age or older. Determining parents. So a traditional household has now changed, and that's okay. Something the FAFSA application has taken into consideration is that there are same-sex marriages, perfectly fine. That's why they are parent one and parent two. We also recognize that there are parents who got married and got divorced and remarried. You always want to make sure, students, that you make this determination with your parents. You include the parent that supports you more than 50%, okay? Even if that means that your mom remarried a different man and now you have a stepdad or stepmom. So you are going to always include the parent who supports you more than 50%, even if it includes. You will not be including boyfriends and girlfriends. So let's say that your mom got divorced and she has a significant other. However, they're not legally married. They are boyfriend and girlfriend and they coincide together and they support you. You do not include that person's tax information. You will only include your mom's in that say. Or if they never married or they're widowed, then you just indicate that they never married or that they widowed, and that's it. You only need one parent. Parents and students, please be aware that you will need an FSA ID. An FSA ID is your electronic signature to sign the FAFSA. There are a few reasons why a parent wouldn't be able to sign the FAFSA, but first I want to go over the circumstances. So only one parent has to sign the FAFSA, even if they're married. One parent signs the FAFSA. One parent can sign multiple student FAFSAs. For instance, and this is just hypothetical, if I was married and I had twins, then I would decide with my partner, with my husband, who's going to sign the FAFSA. Okay, it's me. Then I make an FSA ID multiple for each student. But each student would then have to make their own. So if my twins were John and Susie, John would have to make his own FSA ID and Susie would have to make her own FSA ID. I would not have to make one. I would not have to make two. So one per parent is good to sign multiple FAFSAs, okay? Let's go over some frequent FAFSA errors. When we get in the groove of things, we type really fast and we make mistakes. One of the common one is typing in your social security wrong. That means that you put in one number first in the sequence that's not supposed to go. So make sure that when it comes down to your personal details, such as first, middle, last name, date of birth, and social security number, that you're taking your time to check that you're typing them in correctly. This can cause you a lot of problems with your FAFSA because when you do your college application and admissions, they may have your correct date of birth and social security number if they require it, but then the FAFSA has it differently. So those two files will never match. So you need to make sure that you take your time when you're inputting your personal information. Another thing, like we spoke about, is divorced and remarried parents. Always make sure that you read the status and that you're choosing the one that best fits you. There's divorced, remarried. Then there's married but filed separately. Then never married, widowed, or single parent. Make sure that you're always doing that. And then another one that's huge is, I agree with everyone, tax documents are really hard to read sometimes, especially if you're not a tax professional or a financial aid professional. We're used to looking at tax documents all the time. Be careful when you type in the income earned by parents and untaxed income. Okay, always make sure that you click the little question mark if you're in doubt, because it's not the same number. I've seen it multiple times throughout the years that I've been working in financial aid, that parents and students put the same number for income earned and untaxed income, along with income paid, income taxes paid. So they have the same number 3 times. That's going to trigger the federal government for us to verify you. So then that's when you will need to turn in tax documents to the financial aid office so that we can fix it for you. It's not a big deal, but it does prolong your process. Another tip I've seen is that sometimes parents are working so fast through the FAFSA that they input their tax information in the student section, and then they input the student's tax information under their parent information. That becomes very convoluted and very hard to fix. So slow down. It's okay to take your time with the FAFSA. And in order to avoid this, I would say use the data retrieval tool so that you are making sure that you're inputting the correct person's data in there. And then the data retrieval tool will not transfer anything if it's not matching up the records, okay? Household size. I will give you an example. Let's say that I was married, got divorced, but I live with my boyfriend and my students. The only people that count in my household size, despite the fact that I live with my boyfriend, would be my 2 students and myself, because these are the kids are mine and I take care of them. My boyfriend does not count in the household side for FAFSA until I legally marry him. Okay, so you do not include anybody besides the people that you fully support 50%. Another big misconception is when the question pops up about real estate and investment and net worth. A lot of people do input their house, the value of their home in which they live in, or cars that they drive to work or to a grocery store. This is not what the question is asking. It's asking for a net worth and investments such as personal businesses. If you own a business and you pay taxes and you have income coming in from that, that's what this question is asking. It's not asking how much your house costs or how much it's worth, okay? Types of financial aid we have with the FAFSA is grants, work study, scholarships, and loans. And I'll be going over each one of them. Okay, so what is a grant? A grant is money that does not need to be paid back. It's usually awarded on the basis of financial need. For instance, the big one that everybody hears about is the Pell Grant. The Pell Grant is awarded on base need. So that means that the expected family contribution, which is also referred to as the EFC, is lower than $8,000. Because it's based on the calculation that the federal government tells us how much they determine the student needs in order to complete their degree. Then we have federal supplemental educational grants, and this is at TNCC. At UNR, they have the Teacher Education Assistance and Higher Education Grant. And then we have state and institutional grants that go along with the FAFSA, which is why I recommend that you try to do your FAFSA as soon as it opens. Work study and student employment. Work study is when the federal government pays a portion of your wages to work on campus. I highly recommend everyone to answer yes to this question. I'm a huge advocate for it. I did start my career in higher education as a work study student at the TMCC Financial Aid Office about 11, 12 years ago. It really did pay off. The perks of this is that you do get to be a student first. So your employer works with your school schedule and they're flexible with your school schedule because you're a student first. So you go to class, you come back to work, or you go to class and don't work that day, or come to work and go to class. The perks of it is, like I said, you go to your college, you park once, there's a cafeteria, you can get lunch there, and then you can go to class and then go right back to the office and work. So like I said, I always recommend this option for all students. There's also state work study if you don't qualify for the federal work study, in which the institution will pay your wage. Students get paid like they would in any other job. So they get paid bi-weekly and they get a paycheck. They either get a check or direct deposit. Now let's move on to the financial aid checklist. So TMCC, UNR, UNLV, GBC, WNC, and the other institutions that are under the Nevada State System of Higher Education use the same database. It's called PeopleSoft. Students at TMCC will refer to it as My TMCC, at UNR as My Nevada. So what students need to be aware of is that this is how all departments communicate with them. You need to look at your checklist or to-do list item for financial aid purposes, because this is how we tell you if we need additional information for you to turn in for us. That means tax documents, birth certificates for verification of birth date, marriage certificates to verify marriages. And always make sure that you keep up to date to that. That's how we're communicating with you. Also, please make sure that you're reading your school's website for additional information. For instance, when COVID hit us, we all had to make sure that we communicated with students on what we were going to do. It was on the website. Make sure that you look at your actual budgets. This information is all on there. Always make sure that you do have access to your email address for the one that the college has given you. Because again, this is where the college will be sending you emails about important information about financial aid, academic advising, school closures, going remote, anything like that. That's where it's going to be. And if all else fails and you still have questions, never stop looking and stop asking. This is what we're here for. This is what we do for a living, to help you. So don't be shy. Okay, so now let's go back and talk about scholarships. Scholarships are, again, free money. There's internal scholarships and external scholarships. Let me explain the difference. So internal scholarships are scholarships like the TMCC Foundation Scholarship. I advise all students that are going to TMCC to apply. The application opens January 1st and closes March 1st. So this scholarship is very easy to apply because it's only a few questions, about 6 or 7, and it asks you about your financial need, your educational goals, and we have a huge pool of money, and then we present the applications to a committee and they decide who gets scholarships. So if you're not going to TMCC and you're going to UNR or out of state, make sure that you communicate with their financial aid professionals to see what institutional scholarships are available for you, and always apply. Always apply. It never hurts to apply. External scholarships are coming from outside organizations, such as, for instance, one of the organizations that I see a lot of money coming in from for students is the Women's Nevada Fund. They award students based on the criteria that they have. So always make sure that you do check with your financial aid office and see if they have an external scholarship board. As we proceed on our presentation, I will show you an example of TMCC scholarship board. Now, some of you may be asking, what's the difference between grants and scholarships? They're both free money. Of course, they're both free money, but grants do come as a result of completing the FAFSA and the institution awarding their institutional grants based on some need and some on non-need basis, okay? Scholarships are awarded to students by private donors across the state, the region, or the nation, or their high schools. Okay, so that's the difference. Now, talking about state scholarships, let's talk about the Millennium Scholarship. A lot of you have resided in Nevada for at least 2 years. Every high school student that graduates with a 3.25 GPA, weighted or unweighted, may be eligible for the Millennium Scholarships. Also ask your guidance counselor if you have met a SAT score or ACT score that is higher than normal so that you can qualify for the Millennium, because you can also qualify that way. The Millennium Scholarship is a really good opportunity, and I advise all students to try and get it. You have 10 years to use it, and at the Nevada System of Higher Education colleges, it pays for 10 years. You will never physically see the money because the money gets transferred to us and we apply it to your account. So we subtract it. Let me give you an example. You go to TMCC and you accept your Millennium Scholarship, and I'll tell you how you will accept it in a second. And you're enrolled in 15 credits because the Millennium Scholarship does pay for 15 credits. And it's $40 per credit. So then that's about $480. What the treasurer's office will do is they'll send us $480 and we will deduce it from your tuition and fees. So then you're not responsible for $480. Then you're responsible for the remaining portion of whatever the Millennium didn't cover. In order for you to accept the Millennium Scholarship, the treasurer's office sends a physical notification to your home address. Make sure that your high school has your current home address correct on their database. There is also another way, which I believe is the best way. I believe that you should anybody who's eligible for the Millennium to accept their Millennium through the treasurer's website. That way it's faster and you're not waiting for the mail. Please remember that the mail is contingent on closures and on the mailman getting there on time. So make sure that you talk to your guidance counselor to get all this information so that you can actually accept it online and it's ready to go in August. Okay. Most of the time, the Millennium sends you your notification in August, but here's the problem with that. Tuition is due in August, late August, at least for entry institutions, okay? So always keep in contact with your guidance counselor in your senior year of high school. Now let's talk about another great opportunity. Nevada has the Nevada Promise Scholarship. The only caveat with this is that it's only valid in community colleges. So that means it's valid at TMCC, GBC, WNC, and I forget the last college, but it's all available in all 4 community colleges under the Nevada system of higher education. So if I could go back in time and I had this opportunity on my graduating year of high school, I would apply for the Nevada Promise because it guarantees you 2 years of free college. All you have to do is, I'm sorry, let me see, there's a question here. Accept the Millennium Scholarship through. You would accept the Millennium Scholarship through the Treasurer's Office, and this is being recorded, so you can always go back and look at my slides. I have the website there. And or you can ask your guidance counselor for information on it so that you guys can start accepting it online. But you won't be able to do that until your student gets closer to graduation so that they have determined the eligibility. So back to Nevada Promise. The Nevada Promise pays for 2 years of students' tuition at TMCC or any of the community colleges here in Nevada. All the student needs to do is apply in their high school graduating year. There's a certain amount of our community service hours that they have to comply with and complete. There's a mentorship program. They do have to meet with their mentors certain times and a few times throughout the year. And then they do have to complete the FAFSA and submit any documentation that the financial aid office may need by the specific deadlines. Please visit our website for more Nevada Promise information. But like I said, if you are looking and you're not decided on where to go, I would go and get the Nevada Promise. This scholarship is not based on need. So what does that mean? That means that even if I have a high EFC, then that means that I don't need, that means I'm still gonna get it. Even if I don't get the Pell Grant, then I get the Nevada Promise, and that's still 2 years of free college. Okay, let's move on. So I quickly went over this again, and who's giving out money. Colleges are giving out money. For instance, TMCC Foundation Scholarship gives out money. Nevada Promise is through TMCC, and external organizations, national organizations, and your high schools. Always make sure that students please check with your high schools, and, because I have seen the high schools here in Nevada give a lot of money out to their graduating seniors. I did see a question, but I can't seem to look at the pop-up thing. Oh, thank you. There's somebody put up the website for the Treasurer's Office. Okay, so here are some tips on external scholarships. So again, external scholarships are scholarships that are donated through agencies such as the Nevada Women's Fund, Seroptimus, the Reno Rotary, Sparks Rotary. These are all money that TMCC or UNR do not handle. They have to write us a check for us to apply monies to your account. For the applications, always look at the due dates. I always advise students to jot down the application due dates on their calendar to make sure that they don't miss a deadline. You can always submit an application early, but you cannot submit an application late. I mean, you can submit it, but it won't be looked. It won't be looked at, and it would have been a waste of time for you at that point. Make sure that you have the phone numbers correct, the email addresses correct, and the donor's name correct, okay? Never pay for scholarships. Like I said, you never pay for free money, never ever. Always check for grammar mistakes, proofread your applications, make sure that you have submitted everything that has been requested. So make sure that you have people reading the application for you to make sure you don't miss anything. Keep a copy of your application or scholarship essay. In the past, people would submit their scholarship applications via mail, but now that we're moving more to a virtual world, most applications are submitted online. So you can actually keep a PDF on your files of the application just in case you have questions about your scholarship and why you didn't receive it if you didn't get selected at one point. It's very valid to ask for feedback, and I actually do encourage it. Always make sure, this is very important for everyone, because we are moving more into a virtual world, right? Especially with COVID. Make sure that you clean up your social media, such as Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok. It's very popular now. You want to make sure that you do have fun, but you do not have any derogatory remarks against anyone in any way, shape, or form. Because believe it or not, there are donors out there that do check out your social media platform. I say it from experience, and I share this story because people do need to be wary of this. We had a donor that was very specific, and he wanted us to make sure that we chose a student who was very professional and carried themselves well, not only in person, but also on social media platforms. And as an institution, of course, we did our diligence due, and we checked student social media. The student was notified to clean up their social media. But as time progressed, the student did post a few comments or memes that were somewhat offensive, and that student ended up losing their scholarship, okay? So please make sure that you have fun. I know we all want to have fun, but keep your social media platform as professional as you can, or private. Okay, so where do we want to look for private scholarships? I keep on talking about these scholarships, right? I've done some research on some of the newer scholarship opportunities online. Some of them I'm going to mention on the next slide. Here are some instances of our scholarship board, scholarships.tmcc.edu. Anyone can go ahead and look at it. These are not scholarships that are administered by TMCC. These are scholarships that my team has reviewed and researched to make sure that they're not scams. There's always a risk. I may say that. There's always a risk, but we do our research on them and make sure that they're as legit as possible. We've had instances where people tell us they're donors and their scholarship is looking for criteria, and we dig into it, and they're asking for first and last names, which is normal, date of birth, socials, and for them to send their information to a mail drop out in India. Our institution would never accept that and post that on our website, but those are the things that you want to make sure that you look at all times. One second. Delisa, do you mind if I pause? I think my computer is acting up. I need to make sure that it's plugged in. Okay. Alrighty. Also, another place you want to look at is your employer. Employers oftentimes do have incentives for students that work for them, or even for parents that have students going to college. Sometimes employers do offer a tuition payment or stipend if they're interested in. So always make sure that you check with your employers and parents' employers, okay? Now, here are some of the search engines that I have reviewed and researched to try and see and refer students to safe websites. You will get some spam because these websites do work with advertisement companies. So these are some of the safe ones that we've looked at. It's fastweb.com, scholarships.com, scholarship.owl.com, schooly.com, scholarships360.com. Okay, one tip of advice that I give you is either you make a new email address that's professional, preferably first and last name or something with your name on it, and use it for scholarships only, because like I said, there's going to be a lot of spam that comes with it, but this is where you're going to get all your scholarship information and keep it organized. Like I promised, this is an example of our scholarship board at TMCC. As you can see, it's titled external scholarships. That means that these are not funds that we personally choose students to award to, okay? These are just scholarship opportunities that have come to us from donors that are local and across the nation. These are some of the scholarships that we've researched and we have determined safe for you or any other student to look at and apply for, okay? If you're not going to TMCC, always just check with your financial aid office for their direct scholarship board. I don't mind if you're gonna go on here and look at it. It's a great opportunity. Why not? Now, here is an important part, the essay portion. Our foundation scholarship does not require an essay, but most scholarships do require an essay. Always make sure that you tell your story. Donors really want to hear about you and they want to hear about the obstacles that you've overcome throughout your life. For instance, if I were back in college getting my bachelor's degree or my associate's degree, in my story, I would include that I'm a first generation student and I'm the first one out of 5 children attending college to get my degree in business. That's something that donors want to listen to because they want to make sure that they're investing in people that really want to get their degree and move forward in life. Another thing that they would want to listen to is my accomplishments. And your accomplishments can be anything. One of my personal accomplishments is that when I was younger, I was part of practicing karate and I won one of the tournaments. I never thought I could, but I persevered and I won one of the tournaments of sparring and eventually advanced higher in my belt rank in karate. Or sometimes obstacles. One of my personal obstacles was when I was going to college, the last recession hit and I was a work study student at TMCC, but then I found myself that I needed to help out my family a little bit more and come up with some of the money for my college. So I had to quit and get a full-time job or a job that offered tips. So I went and I worked at a casino here in Reno, Nevada for a little bit. So that was an obstacle, but despite the fact that I gave up my work study position, I still persevered and continued pursuing my educational goals and finally graduated with my bachelor's degree. So sometimes it's very hard to talk about yourself, but it pays off to talk about yourself. Please do. Make sure that you proofread your essay. Something that I recommend our students to do is that they make an appointment with the tutoring office, with the writing office, because they're there to help you, right? So you want to make sure that you present yourself in the best light possible. That includes writing. You want to make sure that there are no grammatical mistakes, fragment mistakes, and you only need one essay, one good essay for multiple scholarships. You can have one good essay and tailor it to whatever other scholarships you need. In order to do this successfully, I do advise that you do take advantage of your financial aid office. In my office, I'm the person that would read your scholarship essay and tell you, you're not answering this question, or yes, you're answering this question correctly. Make sure that you're answering the questions correctly and that you get somebody else's opinion on it, okay? It's really important that you answer essay questions correctly. Recommendations letters. Who can recommend you? We all have siblings and friends that can recommend us. Although it's great, I do not recommend that you use them. I would recommend that you use a present or past employer that you worked for because they know your ethics, they know your work ethics, and personal goals. And you want to come off as professional. And you would use a mentor, you would use a teacher, professor, or a counselor, or anyone that knows your story that is in a professional atmosphere, okay? Like I said, family members are good, but not in this case. I would recommend, like I said, an employer, mentor, teacher, or counselor. When you ask for a recommendation letter, be sure to ask politely and give them enough time to write the essay, give them enough information as well. I've written a few recommendation letters for some of my students that I've mentored in the past, and I cannot tell you enough how much I appreciated that they gave me time to read the requirements that were required for me and to read the scholarship to make sure that I made my student look good and represent them in a positive light. And that's what this bullet's saying, give them a summary of the scholarship, because we also need to know, the person writing the scholarship needs to know what scholarship you are applying for and information on it to make sure that we're answering questions correctly and that we highlight some of the attributes that the scholarship is looking for in a person. Now we're going to go to loans. I saved loans till the very end because this is money that, unlike all the others that I've talked to, you will need to pay back. There are different types of loans. There's federal loans that come off from applying from the FAFSA. I always recommend that students and parents take advantage of federal student loans if you need to take a loan. And it's okay, but I always advise that it's your last resort, okay? Because like I said, you have to pay it back. The federal loans are fixed. They have a fixed interest rate. So if I get a loan today and I'm a student and my interest rate is 4.53%, that's what my interest rate will stay at. It will not fluctuate to the market interest rate. A lot of private loans do that. So that's the great thing about it. And a federal loan, you don't have to pay back until 6 months after you graduate or you stop attending school. There are a few steps that you have to that are required from a student. It's a master promissory note. This is a note that you're signing to the government stating that you will pay the money back once you either graduate or stop going to school 6 months after. And entrance counseling is counseling that every student does to educate themselves of their rights and regulations of the student loan. All the stipulations are stated there. I do advise, even though it is long, that you read the requirements for the loan. Look at the loan as an investment to your future if you absolutely do not have Pell Grant, Nevada Promise, Millennium, or scholarships. This is an investment. It will pay off. I will share with all of you here personally. I myself have student loans, and although I have to pay them back, I needed them, and I'm happy that I utilized them as my last result as I progressed and I used up all my scholarships, because otherwise I would have never graduated with my bachelor's degree, much less my master's degree. So always go with the federal loans. As I am speaking about loans, there's different types of loans. I stated briefly about bank loans and alternative loan lenders. This would be my very last option on loans. I would not take them because the interest rates may fluctuate and they are usually higher. Then there's institutional loans, which I advise over bank loans. Still at TMCC, we have an emergency loan, which is if you by emergency, you broke your laptop and you need a new one, and your financial aid, your grants and scholarships can't cover it, you're exhausted on that funds, then I would get the emergency fund over a bank loan, if that makes sense. The institutional loans do have different regulations and different interest rates, but they're still going to be lower than a bank loan or a private loan. Parents, there are Parent Plus loans. So make sure that you educate yourselves about that if you are willing to take a Parent Plus loan, because this loan is under your name. So for instance, if I were a parent and Susie went to college and she exhausted all her eligibility for her student loans and she still needed more money, as a parent, I can say, okay, I'll take out a student loan for you. It's not under her name. I'm going to be responsible for paying that loan. And usually that loan is a little bit higher in interest than the students, but it's still fixed if you take the federal loan. Always talk to your financial aid office to educate yourselves on the options of Parent Plus loans. But just keep in mind that a Parent Plus loan is under your name, your social security number, and your date of birth. So you are responsible of paying that student loan back. Now, lastly, but not least, let's talk about institutional methodology. So this type of financial aid is for students that are under DACA or our undocumented students. This is a form for them to complete because they cannot complete the FAFSA. They're not eligible for federal aid. So at our institution at TNCC, we have alternative funding, which is institutional aid. So we have the Adelante grant and the TNCC Green Door Scholarship. So that is money specific for that population. We do not do background checks. We do not check credit. We do not report anybody to another agency or anything like that. This is completely safe. Please, if you know anyone that falls under DACA or is undocumented, please refer them to their financial aid office. There is help for them. College is very expensive, and it's a misconception that there is not scholarships or grants for them. There's always help. Like I said in the beginning of the presentation, always ask, always educate yourself. There's always somebody to help. And I don't know if I said it in this presentation, but this is what my job is. This is what I'm here for, and I am delighted to help anyone. I was a first generation student and I needed help. So I've walked in the steps, in the shoes of most of you here, that I was the first one going to college and I needed to educate myself despite the fact that I was born and raised here. I didn't know anything about financial aid. So please do not hesitate to contact us at any given time. Most colleges right now are offering virtual services. My college, TMCC, we are offering one-on-one financial aid assistance appointments. Just visit our website and we are more than glad to help you. UNR is doing it on Fridays, I believe. So always reach out to your college that you've chosen to go to. And I think that is it for me. If there's any questions, you can put them on the chat or you can go ahead and send me an email, and I'll put my email on here so that anybody can reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to help you or send you in the right direction if I can't help you.